Welcome to the Age is Irrelevant podcast with your host, Helen Fritsch. Helen is a 60-plus lifelong competitive athlete, flight attendant, published fitness model, writer, IFBB bodybuilding pro, and certified wine specialist who believes that your age is irrelevant to pursue goals, dreams, and desires. Are you a woman in her 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond who still has a burning desire to pursue a dream or a passion? Are you thinking about starting a new chapter in your life, but you're hesitant, thinking that you might be too old or just don't know where to begin? The Age is Irrelevant podcast is a podcast devoted to women who want to defy the odds, smash barriers, and redefine happiness and success after 40. It's time to make a difference. There is no need to dread blowing out that added birthday candle every year. A new movement is slowly taking momentum, where being over the hill just isn't relevant anymore. Age labels are being thrown out the window, and women are rediscovering the strength within themselves to make a difference, not only within their own lives, but also touching and inspiring the lives of other women. Join Helen as she and her guests discuss all aspects of aging after 40 and how to make the aging process and those twilight years more rewarding, exciting, and fun.
Hello, and welcome to the Age is Irrelevant podcast. I'm your host, Helen Fritsch. This is episode number 72. Now, today I am interviewing Dr. Susan Brown. Dr. Brown is a medical anthropologist, certified nutritionist, and the best-selling author of the Acid Alkaline Food Guide and Better Bones, Better Body book. She's also a noted researcher, inspirational speaker, and founder of the Center for Better Bones and Alkaline for Life. In her decades of experience, she has authored more than 1,000 articles and produced hundreds of videos on pH balance, the alkaline diet, and natural bone health. I discovered Dr. Brown on, of all places, TikTok. I have learned so much on TikTok, and when I came across Dr. Brown's videos, she is just a wealth of information, providing all kinds of info on better bone health, the alkaline diet, vitamins, and supplementation, and I thought she'd be a great guest to have on the show since so many of my audience members are over the age of 50. I was not wrong. We had a great discussion, and she provided lots of great information on bone health, especially. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Brown as much as I did. And without further ado, here we go. Hello, Dr. Brown. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
I'm so thrilled to have you. For my listeners, I am talking to Dr. Susan Brown. Now, Dr. Brown has a PhD. She is a medical anthropologist, certified nutritionist, and the best-selling author of the Acid Alkaline Food Guide and Better Bones, Better Body book. She's a noted researcher, inspirational speaker, and founder of the Center for Better Bones and Alkaline for Life. In her decades of experience, she's authored more than 1,000 articles and produced hundreds of videos on pH balance, the alkaline diet, and natural bone health. And I discovered Dr. Brown on TikTok.
Yeah, really.
TikTok is like one of my favorite things now. I have to actually limit myself to maybe 15 minutes because you can get so engrossed in like scrolling through. But I have learned so much on TikTok. And when I came across you, just for you to be able to dispel all this valuable information in 60 seconds, I thought, especially geared towards our audience, women over 50, over 60 and beyond, I thought I need to have Dr. Brown on my show. And I'm so thrilled that she agreed to be a guest. So, Dr. Brown, I always like to start off in the beginning of, where you grew up, and let's talk about your childhood, your schooling, and because I like to see the path that took you to where you are today.
Well, I grew up in central New York, and, we were country kids. We spent a lot of time outside. We had a great privilege of living outside most any daylight hours, a lot of athletics in school, just a lot of really fun growing up, and mostly the country living, which I think really benefits. And I hate to see kids that are inside in front of their computers all day long. It's a shame. Mm-hmm. And then I went to college and graduate school in anthropology. I was very interested in South America, and the Latin cultures. I wanted to understand how cultures worked. And then at some point, I got interested in individual health and how health is influenced by culture and society. Actually, one of the important turning points was my grandmother, who was very dear to me. She fractured a hip at 101. She was living alone at 101.
Wow.
I don't know what we ever do. Let her in. She was in the bathtub and she slipped in the bathtub, which is really amazing that 101. And she had both osteoporosis and rickets. It's a very interesting story. Rickets, where you have the bowed legs, and anyway, so she went to bed, and her son said, "Well, do you want to see a doctor?" She said, "No, I've seen one of those before." She said, I've taken care of my sons for 100 years. They can take care of me. So she was in bed. She was very sound of mind. She survived a year like that. And then she died a year to the day that she fell, which was on Christmas Day. An amazing person. And
Wow.
what happened is, I always thought, how long might she have lived if she didn't have that fracture? Because she had a lot of longevity in her favor. And so then about that same time, the dentist told me, "Hey, you've got some receding gums." And I realized then that was the early sign of bone loss. So then I started looking at bone loss, started asking the question, around the world, is it common that older people suffer excessive bone loss? That's when I wrote the book, Better Bones, Better Body, looking around the world, which showed that it wasn't common. It was only certain cultures where people had weakened bones. And this was a few decades ago, and it really inspired me to spend several decades looking at bone health. Now we see that much of the world is taking on a Western lifestyle, Western diets, and they're also suffering many cultures are suffering from a considerable amount of bone loss. But that's how it all started. So I moved from anthropology sort of over to nutrition to study nutrition, and really come to specialize in bone health and actually autoimmune disease, right?
Wow. And so many of us are experiencing autoimmune diseases today.
Yeah, it's another big weakness that shows up when we get into what we call repair deficit, when the body cannot repair itself adequately. But that's pretty much my story.
Yeah, that's great. I also see in your bio that you were the first to prove that using only natural methods, nearly every woman can build strong bones for life. That is to me, a very profound statement, because it's so important for women over 50, especially, to have sound bone health.
Right. Yes. And it's sort of, our culture sort of works against it, because women are often told that they should be very thin, when, bone density and bone strength can be really thin. Women frequently have lower bone density, and sometimes they have lower bone strength. We emphasize being very thin, sometimes at the cost of health. We don't emphasize the physical activity in building muscle strength. The diet is so difficult because 60% of our diet is processed food. Even in the U.S. as a whole, 1 out of 3 people any day do not have even one fruit or one vegetable. We eat so many processed foods. Grab a sandwich here, a Coke, some chips here. It's really, we've strayed far from the eating patterns that provide us with all the nutrients we need. And in fact, at one point, I can give you some of the statistics on current deficiencies if you want. And it's pretty startling. So,
yes.
Yeah, we always say using bone health as a concern is a way to build overall health. It's about better bones and a better body. It's like a window of opportunity to improve your health as a whole. Bone health doesn't stand alone. It's tied to the health of the entire body. Now, that being said, there's some situations wherever you see serious bone loss, or you see a person who's fracturing, then you want to pay special attention to look for the cause of that problem. And I've written a document called the Medical Osteoporosis Workup, and you can find that on betterbones.com. And it is all the tests you should have done, from vitamin D to loss of calcium in the urine to parathyroid to the sex hormones, if you want, to see what might be the cause of this bone weakening. So many times women are told, just take a drug, and they don't try to find out what the problem is. If you think about it, every animal in the forest has perfect bone health. The animals in the forest aren't fracturing. Why do we fracture? Because of certain lifestyle things. And sometimes medicines can really damage bone. Certainly smoking, alcohol, undereating, an acid diet, so many things. So yeah, just to step in there and learn about it, especially if you have signs of bone weakness. Like I had signs of bone weakness because I had receding gums.
Well, and it's interesting that you actually took notice of that, because I go to the dentist twice a year, and and the first thing they talk about is, how are your gums bleeding, and they'll talk about recessed gums too. And so that's interesting that you were at that point in your life that quick to take notice of that, where a lot of people wouldn't even consider that.
Yeah.
Oh, my gums are receding. What does that mean? Oh, I don't know. So,
well, you see, my grandmother had already fractured, so I started studying osteoporosis, and I started realizing that that was an early sign of osteoporosis. And bleeding gums is a sign of vitamin C deficiency. It's a subclinical scurvy, actually, and you can easily correct that using a very high quality vitamin C.
So, you mentioned briefly acid, and so I know that you're big on alkaline also too. So let's talk about, as far as the acidity in the body, and how that can really, if it sways to one, end or the other, it can be actually detrimental.
Yes. This whole concept of an alkaline diet really relates to the fact that the body has to operate within a very narrow range of pH. Like, for example, the blood can only be, I think it's 735 to 745 pH. It's a very narrow window. And so if your pH varies, the body is going to do everything to bring it back to that slightly alkaline range. And one of the major mechanisms to rescue pH is the bone reserves of minerals. The minerals in bone are combined with alkalizing compounds like carbonates and phosphates. So the body will break down bone, take out those minerals and the compounds the minerals are attached to buffer the acids, so the body can return to an acceptable level of pH balance. It's like your bones store alkali mineral reserves. And if we get too acid, largely because of our diet, largely because we eat diets that are too high in processed food, too high in meat, too high in salt, too high in sugar, too high in alcohol, all these things are acid forming. And that will cause you to sacrifice bone to go back to maintain the obligatory pH balance. There's a lot of research on this, and it's done by kidney specialists who really understand that the kidneys control pH. The body does an amazing job of controlling pH, but there's one window where you can collect acid, and that's through diet. And so I've written a really nice article, because some people say, well, diet can't affect the blood pH, but it really does. The point is, even a tiny shift towards acidity causes the cells to function differently. What do they do differently? One, they don't produce protein so well. Two, they don't produce ATP energy so well. Three, they retain too much fluid and get clogged up. Many, many things happen if you have even a slightly acidic tilt. They see with bone, a slightly acidic tilt, and your bone breakdown cells start working overtime, and your bone buildup cells start working. They can see this very clearly. So we are talking about the same kind of diet that's good for everything: fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, adequate protein, but not too much. That is a very life-supporting diet, which will give you enough mineral reserves to buffer the acids. Now, I will say that because the soils are so depleted, and because 1 out of 3 people doesn't even eat one vegetable. You know how many vegetables you need to alkalize? You need about 6 or 7 cups a day. Mm-hmm. And people, maybe in the past they ate it, but now we don't do enough exercise. People don't eat it. Well, 1 out of 3 doesn't even have one fruit or one vegetable a day. So those are the alkalizing compounds: fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, spices, that we eat far too little of. So we have to pay the price of acidity. It comes out of our bones.
Exactly. And you actually wrote a book, The Acid Alkaline Food Guide.
Exactly. That's a wonderful book. It's translated into many languages, and it helps people understand this complicated issue of pH, and also lists all the foods which alkalize, which ones highly alkalize, which ones moderately alkalize, which ones are only slight alkalizing, which foods acidify. So it's a guide to choosing your foods. And a lot of this information is on our website called Alkaline for Life. I have 2 websites. Alkaline for Life is all about pH balance, And the betterbones.com is all about bone. So, and we have hundreds of videos, like not only TikTok, but YouTube, Facebook. Our goal is that anyone in the world who's interested in bone health can take charge of their bone health. And they can learn everything I know. As I was mentioning to you before we spoke, we give these retreats, which are online classes, which are 4-day retreat. We have a whole big comprehensive workbook we send people, and it's very intense to learn every step of the program. We have 6 steps in this Better Bones Solution program. Learn every step and come to understand all the things you can do to improve your total health and to improve bone health.
Yeah, well, they definitely go hand in hand. That's for sure. What is your take on alkaline water?
Well, I've written a blog on that. And what happens is the true alkaline waters, you see, if you say alkaline water, you could say, well, any water that has a pH above 7. In the pH scale, there's 0, which is very acid, 7 is neutral, 14 is very alkaline. So you could say anything that's above 7 is an alkaline water. And it's true, you could take a water and put baking soda in it and it'll become alkaline. And you'd like a pure rainwater to be neutral at 7. But it doesn't mean that it alkalizes. It doesn't mean it's going to change your chemistry. I'm not a fan of alkaline waters because all they generally do is change the pH of the water. What you need to do is add minerals, add carbonates, add dissolved solids. You see this in the European mineral waters, which are true mineral waters that have spent centuries coming through the Alps and are very highly mineralized, like San Faustino is one. And there's some German ones that are commonly in the supermarkets, and they'll say European mineral water, they'll say high mineral water, low mineral water. These, Gerald Steiner is one that's very popular here now. Those are true mineral waters. You go to the store and pay a bunch of money for a water of pH 9. That's not gonna help you out. I mean, and it's going to decrease the stomach acid because it's too alkaline. So I'm not a big fan of alkalizing water with agents that are not mineral nutrients.
And it's so abundant today. I mean, I walked into Sprouts just the other day, and right there, as soon as you walk in, a big giant display case of alkaline water, and it's $5 for a gallon or something. I just thought I can't pay $5 for a gallon of water. I just can't.
Yeah. If you want to spend your money, buy the European mineral water, like Gerald Steiner. Those are nice things, and there's plenty of research showing they will help to build bone because they really deliver alkalizing compounds and minerals.
That's great. So now let's talk about bone health, because that's what you're such a special
right.
A specialty. That's what your specialty is too. So what can women over 50, especially, do as far as increase overall general health and bone health? I mean, I know this is a very broad question that I'm asking you, and I think you've actually worked up some 7 points of discussion. So let's just start talking about that.
Well, what I was thinking of, if some of your audience isn't into menopause yet, they're like near menopause, it's really important to know that bone loss begins actually, menopause is a time of accelerated bone loss. The average woman between the first year before the last period and 5 or 6 years after, the average woman loses 10% of her bone mass. Some women lose 20%. And particularly, I got to say, if you're particularly thin and worried, it's likely you're more in the possibility of losing 20%. So it's good to know this is a window of bone loss. I need to pay very good attention. If you happen to be listening and you aren't yet into full-blown menopause, pay special attention because you can prevent a lot of this loss. So the first thing to know, it's an accelerated period. It begins the first year before the last period. Now, you might say, how do I know the first year before the last period? But when you're like 49, your periods start to get irregular. Sometimes you have a little bit of flashing, other times you don't. That's the year before that menopause actually sets in, and you start having when you start having skip periods and this and that. So that's the time you want to make sure you're doing the strong program. And I'll talk later. Our strong program is the alkaline diet. It's a whole series of supplements. It's exercise, just like you talk. One of the most potent ways to build bone is to load the bone, to show the bone they need to be strong. And you load them by doing exercise, particularly you're a bodybuilder, lifting with weights, and you can share your your bone density, actually. And we have a wonderful webinar by Belinda Beck. Did you happen to see that webinar, Helen? The Belinda Beck?
No.
She's an Australian researcher who has older women lifting weights like Olympic weightlifting, squats, deadlifts. These people are building a lot of bones in their 60s and their 70s, even older. They're highly supervised. She doesn't want anyone to get hurt, but the researcher said you can't do it. You cannot reverse osteoporosis. Well, these women are reversing it, but she is very careful because you have to have supervision. You don't want to hurt yourself. But it's a webinar we have on Alkaline for Life. You should catch it. It's very inspirational.
I will.
She is reducing fracture by about 50%, falls by even more than that. It's very dramatic what you can do with exercise. But let's get back. So the woman is just getting into menopause. They say, okay, so first thing, it's very good to do some measurements, do some baseline measurements, like to know what your bone density as you go into menopause, to know what your bone breakdown is. Helen, are you familiar with bone breakdown? These markers like the CTX and the NTX that can tell you how much bone you're losing?
I'm not.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. When you lose bone, a fragment of bone protein shows up in the blood. And you can measure that. And it can say, oh, you're losing more bone than the average 40-year-old, or you're losing less bone than the average 40-year-old. So as you start menopause, you'd like to know what your bone breakdown is. And as you go through menopause, it's going to get higher, but you want to do things to control it. Like our whole supplement program is aimed to that. So at least get a bone density so you know your baseline. If you haven't had a bone density, get a bone density test. Now, there's lots of problems with bone density tests, but give you a rough idea of what's going on. And also be sure to do things like get your vitamin D tested. For sure, adequate vitamin D, you can prevent 50% of the fractures, and you want a 50 to 60 level of vitamin D. If you live in Scottsdale, you got a good start at that, but get your vitamin D tested. And as I mentioned, there's a whole series of, if you say, I've already fractured, or my mother, I had a family history of fractures, and your bone density is low, it's good to get the medical tests right at baseline. It's called the Medical Osteoporosis Workup. They look at things like parathyroid and thyroid and sex hormones and cortisol, very important. And so you can then say, okay, I have some baseline measurements. See, is there any reason that even going into menopause, my bone is density is low, or I've already fractured going into menopause? So be a little bit prepared for that. Then you jump right into the program, the alkaline diet. We have a whole webinar, a free webinar on the alkaline diet on Alkaline for Life. Remember our two sites, Alkaline for Life and betterbones.com. You can learn everything about the alkaline diet. You can know you start out getting 2 cups of vegetables for lunch, 2 for dinner. I even get them for breakfast. I say I cannot eat enough, so I get my vegetables for breakfast too. And there's a very simple way that you can measure to see if your diet is really alkalizing. And it's by looking at the first morning urine. And we actually have produced a pH test kit, an alkaline diet kit.
Love it.
An alkaline diet kit that has the book I wrote. It has pH paper. It tells you how to develop an alkaline diet. And I think you have arranged with my staff for your listeners to get a discount. There's a discount code on both Alkaline for Life and betterbones.com. And I think that discount code is everything a woman should. I'll get you the discount code. Jean, I know my assistant set up one for you, so that people can get a jump start, and they can also get a jump start on this retreat that we do. So the stuff I'm going to talk about today is like a glimpse of what we teach in this 4-day event, where we go over every step of this program. The first step is a diet. So you start working on that. Check out our webinar, the Alkaline Diet webinar. That'll give you a lot of free information. Then you want to think about your exercise. Now, you're the perfect person to help people with exercise, because you've always been an exercise enthusiast and always a sports person.
Yes. Always. Well, I was fortunate too. My parents were both athletes, and my father was a big time athlete. He went to college on scholarship, and then he actually qualified for the Olympics.
Fun.
And he ended up not going to qualify because it interfered with his marriage date.
I see.
And I was like, Dad, come on, you could have put off the wedding. Yeah. But anyway, so I grew up all over the world. My dad's job took us everywhere. Every 2 or 3 years we were moving. So I think that's why I like being a flight attendant so much, because I'm easily adaptable. But at the same time, my brother and sister and I, kind of like you, I lived in Germany growing up younger, and we just had each other to play with. And we had a big giant forest out back, and we would go out and just be hours out in the forest playing games, making up stuff, whatever. So we were always running, jumping, whatever. And my dad was, I was like, I aspired to be like him. And when I finally was able to get to school, I ran track and I played basketball and I played tennis and I ran cross country. And back then we didn't have all the things that we have today, all the kids today, as far as nutrition and, strength coaches and whatever. I was very lucky that I just practiced and I had some natural ability and I was a naturally gifted athlete. So I was, we part of state championship teams. I ran track at the University of Kentucky. And just luckily, due to my parents' influence, just kept that, going. And once I got out of school, I still, the whole jazzercise phase and step aerobics.
And now you said you've measured your bone density recently and it looked very good.
Very, very good. And I've always been into lifting weights, but in my mid 50s, I thought, I really want to step it up. And someone mentioned, oh, you should consider bodybuilding. And I looked at it, and I'm a certified wine specialist. That's my hobby. And so when I found out the strict diet and no alcohol, no wine, I thought, well, I'm working at a wine shop and I drink wine every day, so I can't do that. Well, the universe had other plans for me. And 6 months later, I was reintroduced to this bodybuilding stuff. And I just thought, I'm going to go for it. And I did. And I've never looked back. On my 60th birthday, I won a big national show and turned pro.
All right.
And I'm actually prepping for a show in April, like in a month. So I'm still competing. And my body, I'm in the best shape of my life, and that's pretty, awesome to say at 64.
Yeah.
So, but I'm a firm believer in, as far as my bones. I mean, today was leg day. I trained with my coach earlier before I'm chatting with you, and it was leg day. And, I can lift some pretty heavy weight, and I just attribute that all to my strong bones and eating, complex carbs, lean proteins, healthy fats. It all comes together, I'm sure people probably ask you too, what's your secret? Or, and I'm like, there's no secret. It's like classic textbook, eat right, sleep, hydrate, stay out of the sun, don't smoke, so I think it all just comes together and meshes.
Well, you have a great story there, and it can help to inspire many, many people. In my case, I didn't have great health. I was like the weakling in the group, of my family. And I think it was largely affected by a nervous system. I was like my mother would say, the worrywart type. And so I was somewhat depleted. And so actually, I, like you, can say I feel better now at my age than I felt when I was much younger. And that is largely to do to the fact that I've worked to put an emphasis on regaining health and gaining the best possible health I can have. In my case, I was involved with allergies, a lot of sinus, a lot of headaches, some autoimmune issues. And I found what was really important to me, the diet certainly is very important, but supplementation was really important. And I happened to work with some very, really exceptional geniuses like Dr. Russell Jaffe, who has helped me develop a whole line of excellent products. And to recover my own health, special forms of vitamin C have been really important to me. It's a major electron donor. It's really an important part of our bone health problem. Quercetin, many nutrients. I am in nutrient deficit and a repair deficit. And part of my well-being is really focused on detoxifying things like mercury. Like so many of us, I had mercury poisoning from dental fillings. And some people aren't bothered by it. I was, because I was a little more vulnerable. So I'm happy to say, that I've improved my health a great deal. And I'm really happy to share. And people sometimes say, well, you use awful strong nutritional supplements. Well, I do, because that works for me and many of my crowd, but other people may not need quite so much. They may say, no, if I do more, I pay more attention to the meditation or pay more attention to the exercise, or I try to get everything I can with diet. But the diets are a big problem because our soils are so depleted and the quality of food is so poor in this country, or around the world, actually. There's whole campaigns now to try to reverse the soil degradation. Actually, this calculation is that in 50 years, there will be no viable topsoil on the earth unless we start working to get those to nourish the microbiome of the soil, to get natural fertilization in the soil. There's a great campaign now. People can hook up to it, savesoil.com, which is a worldwide campaign by this Indian visionary called Sadhguru, Sadhguru, to get governments to be thinking about preserving soil, because you can't produce food unless you have a 2% organic material. In many parts of the world, the soil is turning to sand for lack of organic material. So it's like, we got to take care of ourselves. We got to take care of our environment. In my case, the nutritional supplements made a big difference.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that, but I want to finish the points on bone health. So we were on exercise.
Right. And the exercise, here's a short on exercise. You build muscle, you build bone. So the stronger muscles are associated with stronger bones. This was developed by Harold Frost decades ago. It's the simplest way to look at it. When you lose muscle, you lose bone. We all lose muscle and bone as we age. The average woman is going to lose 45% of her muscle and her bone as she goes from 35 to 85. Look at older people. If you doubt that, you want to slow down that whole process as much as possible. And so it's very good, even before menopause, to sit down and look at the older people in your community and say, who do I want to be like? Do I want to be like this person who has fractured and has got a Dowager's hump and can't do any activity and got back pain? Or do I want to be like someone who's strong and vigorous, playing golf, playing tennis, having a good time, doing everything they want to do? Because you need to cultivate bone strength and total body strength for that, to limit the effect of aging. Yeah, to live, just to keep a nice long health span, and then we just leave the planet. Not that we have to have all this degeneration going on. And so the exercise is really important. And be physical strength. Physical therapy, don't overlook it. If you say, well, I'm kind of weak, I'm afraid I'll hurt myself, do physical therapy. Trainers are really helpful. You need to build the muscles around the hip. You need to build the back extensor muscles. I myself, again, after this COVID thing, have once again got into a strength training program with weightlifting. A very good idea. If you don't like that, even Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong, Pilates, all these things will help. Pick your favorite activity, do it to build strength.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah. And the next point is this digestion. We talk a lot about diet and we talk a lot about supplements, but you have to have strong digestion. So if you have gas and bloating and indigestion, if you had food allergies, good to pay attention to these, because it means you're probably not using the nutrients very well. If people want a little starter, if they say, I got a few digestive concerns, go to betterbones.com and look up our 10 steps to stronger digestion. Just some simple hints to give people how to build digestive strength. And if you have a bigger concern, of course, hop onto our next retreat, this 4-day educational effort, which will be in June. Join on that, and you're going to learn everything about each step of these programs, including how to build digestion.
Yeah, I'm all about that too, because I've actually been having some digestive issues, and I'm working hard in the gym. I'm not putting on the muscle that I should be putting on. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with hormonal, things, especially at my age. But at the same time, my homeopath and I have decided or discovered that I'm just not absorbing all the food that I'm putting into my body properly. And so that's an issue for me too. So I'm working on that, but I'm a firm believer in, digestion. And a lot of people will have bloating issues and distension, and they don't understand why. And then I start quizzing them on, well, what are you eating? And then it's all processed food, gluten, dairy. I'm like, well, just pull a couple of those things out of your diet for a couple of weeks and see how you feel. Because sometimes these issues and these triggers, just for me, I was able to eat and drink anything I wanted to until age 55. And then all of a sudden I woke up one day and I looked like I was 3 months pregnant, and I couldn't figure out why. And then all of a sudden I discovered that, whey protein powder was like, killing my stomach, and, some other foods. And I finally had to start pulling out gluten and dairy, and that made a dramatic difference. But I was smart enough to realize that, where a lot of people don't even think about that. They're like, oh, I can't understand why, as they're continuing to eat bread and pasta and milk and, whatever. So very important digestion. That's huge.
Yeah, especially those foods that are hard to digest. Yep. Like the wheat and dairy, those proteins.
Yeah.
The other thing is that is stress. It's surprising that stress takes a big toll on bone. You know, and I've been saying this for decades, that the stress response, we know that when we feel stress, we produce cortisol. We know that cortisol damages bone. Today, you can measure your cortisol level. I have my clients measure their cortisol first thing in the morning and night. We try to, if it's high, you definitely want to work with meditation. There's even supplements to help control cortisol. But the new research is really fascinating. This is from Columbia University. This scientist has spent decades studying this one protein called osteocalcin, which is a protein in bone. And he's found that when you have a sense of danger, when the body senses danger, it automatically takes osteocalcin, which is a bone-building protein, out of bone to send it to the autonomic nervous system to shut down the parasympathetic nervous system so you can go full tilt fight or flight without halting. Imagine that you're on the savannah, you're being chased by a leopard, you fall into a big hole, you got to get out of that hole. You need everything you got. And you don't want anything turning off that stress response. So this osteocalcin is sacrificed from bone to turn off the stress response so you can be fully stressed. Now, the problem is most of us don't have a tiger after us, but we feel danger. And so we're depleting our bone by taking the osteocalcin out. And it's interesting, bone responds even before the adrenals respond to danger. So many ways, bone serves so many functions we don't appreciate. And that one of them is helping us deal with stress. And stress will deplete bone. So I'm sure you help your clients with meditation, with visualization, with exercises like Qigong and Tai Chi, pranayama, breathing exercises that harmonize the nervous system, all this stuff, very good to reduce the stress response. And to check your cortisol. If it's high, even if you just check first morning cortisol, you definitely want to look into that. Or if you say, I'm the kind of person I wake up at 3:00 and I can't fall back to sleep for 2 hours, you likely have high cortisol. And there's some great products that we use to control cortisol. We have at the Alkaline for Life, we have a very excellent staff. If you ever want to call a question like, what was she talking about? What nutrient was this and that? We're happy to help you. Of course, we like it best if people do the retreat because they learn everything. But I also do office hours a couple times a week. People pay a few bucks and they can ask any question they want. So that's very helpful if you got a bunch of questions about your own particular case.
Yeah.
Or if you're trying to prepare all your records, so you know just what your tests are and what they show. So maybe then you jump into the retreat and you're more prepared. But stress is a really big one. That's for sure. And you want to learn how to understand the markers. Say if you have a high cortisol, you want to understand how to reduce it and then watch it as time goes by. There's so many ways we can monitor either our digestion, our stress response, our nutrients. Very good idea to take every step of the program and just kind of look at it carefully. And the hormonal balance step is an important one. Particularly, we focus on cortisol a lot. But of course, there's the thyroid is very important, the parathyroid and the sex hormones.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. It's like, you might say, well, it's a lot of work. I have to work with diet. I have to work with supplements. I have to work with 20 key bone nutrients. We've identified 20 nutrients that are central for bone. And we provide these in a product called alkalizing minerals. You always want to get the antioxidants. Our favorite nutrient really is ascorbate, buffered ascorbate. A particular form of vitamin C that's very potent. Vitamin C, many people consider osteoporosis to be a form of subclinical scurvy, but actually it's very related to vitamin C deficiency and deficiency of antioxidants. You're into hormones, right? So when you stop producing a lot of estrogen, you lose a benefit in that estrogen is a strong antioxidant. And so we find that many of the menopausal bone loss can be corrected greatly with high antioxidants, like vitamin C, like quercetin, like we look a lot at zinc and magnesium, very important. Magnesium is probably more important than calcium to bone. And how do you, so Helen, here's fun for your people. How do you know if you have enough magnesium?
Tell us.
Yeah, you might say, well, of course, if a person's I got spasms, I got twitches,
right, okay.
You look at those kind of symptoms. But then if you can look, the scientific way is to look at your first morning urine. Take some pH paper like we like we deal with here and we have in our pH test kit. You measure your first morning urine right when you get up, the first urine. You want it to be 6.5 or to 7.5. If it's lower than 6.5, you know you don't have enough magnesium. You know your acid, and it's largely magnesium that relates to control the cellular acidity. So that's a simple thing. First, if your pH is not ideal, not 6.5, then you know you need more magnesium. Magnesium is really overlooked. It's a very strong agent to protect from fracture.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm adamant about taking my magnesium at night, especially too, as far as sleep quality.
Yes, exactly.
And people, I've seen people take magnesium like in the morning or like, I actually, my sister was kind of amusing. I was at her house one morning and she was getting ready to go play pickleball, and she's making herself a protein shake, and she has Calm, which is, loaded with magnesium. And she's like putting a scoop of that into there. I go, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I go, that's Mary, that's magnesium, and you should take that at night. Oh, I always take it in the morning. I go, but it says Calm. It's calming the system down. It's going to help you prepare for a good night's sleep. And she's like, oh, I didn't know that. So,
well, yes, but it doesn't have to be taken just at night. I mean, you need magnesium all day long. And the average person, we often use 1,000 milligrams altogether. But some people, even if you take 500, it's not a bad idea to spread it out throughout the day. And that Calm is a meg carbonate. We like to use a mix of alkalizing salts like glycinates and citrates, and actually at Alkaline, but get the magnesium no matter how. At Alkaline for Life, we have gone on to develop with my mentor, my professor, a series of products, high quality professional grade products. Like we have a magnesium called ionized magnesium, a multi-mineral mix, an energized multi, for the people that want the higher end products that are really science-based. But it's no matter where you start, look at all the 20 key bone nutrients and see, am I getting some boron, some zinc, some manganese, some copper? And we have a great list of all the 20 key nutrients on betterbones.com. And like I say, if you have a real big problem, you say, hey, I fractured already, or I'm having this issue with my teeth, really, because an early sign of bone loss is the teeth. And receding gums and loose teeth and all this. Or you have a big family history. So I'm really concerned because my mother fractured young and my grandmother. Then hop on the retreat and take charge, because modern medicine, the doctors don't have time to deal with this. They'll just say, take a drug, and you have to take a drug for life, because when you take a drug, you stop it, you lose everything you gained. And so it's good to use this as an opportunity to look in as a window of opportunity to rebuild all your health. Any bone health concern we see as an opportunity to rebuild health, all body health.
And I think and what you're saying is so true. And what I think is really important is that you can improve your overall body health at any age.
And through any window. You could get interested in weightlifting and improve it, because you say, geez, I got to have better nutrition. I'm reading weightlifters should alkalize. I'm reading that weightlifters should be well hydrated. So you can pick any window you want. Mm-hmm. But if your window is bone, if you say, I got a bone health concern, then you can use that as a window, especially the way we teach it, as a window to build all your health.
Well, and as we were talking earlier too, before we started recording, it's, knowledge is power. And so many women over 50 now are like, they're having this reawakening because they're transitioning, they're becoming empty nesters. They're maybe going into a new job. Their relationship might be changing. Maybe they're getting divorced. I mean, there's so many factors all of a sudden now. And now all of a sudden they're starting to think about me versus thinking about their family, their kids, other jobs, work or whatever. And they're like, what about me? I want to take care of me, but they don't know how to go. They don't know. They want to improve their health. They want to look better. They want to lose weight. They want to put on muscle, but they don't know. So when I find people like you who are able to disseminate all this wonderful information, I think it's fantastic. And I just think that we could start, doing this at any age. And your website, all your knowledge with bone health, and as well as alkaline and diet, digestion, knowledge is power. And if people want to take this retreat or they want to buy your book, for me, I'm a sponge. I'm a voracious sponge. I'm always learning. And that's why I love about even like fun little TikTok videos. I've learned so much on TikTok. I'm always listening to podcasts, outside of my own, and I've learned so much. So I just think what you're doing is amazing, and I really applaud you. Thank you for doing all that.
Well, we thank you, and you're an inspiration. I think I just noticed that this battery may give out on me, so I just want to say it's a pleasure for me to be with you. I encourage everyone to take charge of their overall health, to work consistently with you, to take charge of your bone health. If you're interested in bone, look at betterbones.com, look at Alkaline for Life, join our retreat. We'll get you the discount code so people can have a 10% off on anything we have to offer, including the retreat.
Okay.
And you include it in your program. You learn about it too, so you can help many more people. Because if we take charge of our bone health, we can accomplish what we want.
And if you have a quick second on social media, where can people find you?
Well, we're all over. We do Facebook. Go to betterbones.com and just like us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. I have a wonderful young staff that is doing everything under the sun to get this word out, because I want every person in the world to know, every interested person knows there's something they can do. I never want someone to say, no one told me I didn't have to take this bone drug. No one told me I could find out what the problem was. That's our major campaign. And I congratulate you on your work, and I appreciate anyway you help us make the whole country and women stronger. And we always say it's about staying stronger longer.
Oh, I love that. Staying stronger longer. Well, thank you, Dr. Brown, for giving us all this wonderful information. I'll definitely provide all the websites and all the social media and your discount. And thank you for joining us. And I hope you have a great day.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye. I sure hope you enjoyed this interview with Dr. Brown. So much valuable information that I hope you all were able to absorb. And I will give you all of her information on her websites and her retreat and a discount at the end of this takeaway. And here are a couple of things I got from our interview. So first of all, I can't stress enough how important bone health is to all of us over the age of 50. And you might be asking, well, why does bone health matter? Our bones support us and allow us to move. They protect our brain, heart, and other organs from injury. Our bones also store minerals such as calcium and phosphorus, which help keep our bones strong and release them into the body when we need them for other uses. Now, Dr. Brown stated that it is well documented that bone grows in strength according to the load put upon it. You gain muscle, then you will gain bone. You lose muscle, then you will lose bone. It's also clear that muscles and bone form one single unit, and as we build muscle, we build bone. Exercise programming is an essential component to building better bones. And I stress it's never too late to start building bone. Improving bone health is a way to improve overall health. Many of us are in menopause or post-menopause, and this is a time of accelerating bone loss. Now more than ever, loading the bone will improve bone density, which translates into starting an exercise weight-bearing program as soon as possible. She also mentions that digestion plays a big role in overall health and bone density. Now, if you're not absorbing food properly, then your cells, your muscles, your bones will not be able to absorb the necessary nutrients to keep the body strong. Stress also takes a big toll on bone. Dr. Brown also said that if you remain in a state of stress for an extended period of time, your body remains flooded with cortisol. This can lead to serious bone damage. Cortisol is acidic and throws off the pH balance of your body. It also interferes with calcium absorption, preventing replacement of that crucial mineral. Now, to rectify this imbalance, alkalizing minerals are removed from your bones, decreasing their density. So meditation, visualization, Tai Chi, and yoga are just a few calming remedies to help prevent bone loss. Harmonizing the body is so important, and you can do this at any age. Nobody wants to finish up their second chapter of life in a wheelchair. Movement and resistance training are key components to better bone health. Now, don't delay in starting your journey to a stronger, better you. Start today. And if you want more information on how to attain better bone health, please go to Dr. Brown's website, www.betterbones.com. She has a bone loss quiz you can take. She has several free webinars and courses that you can watch to learn about promising nutritional and lifestyle bone building therapies. She's also offering an online weekend workshop in June, offering 6 steps to building stronger bones naturally. And you can use the code, and this is in all capital letters, Age is Irrelevant, which includes 10% off the entire Better Bones shop, which is the supplements, exercise equipment, etc., and the upcoming June retreat. She also has another website called Alkaline for Life, and that's www.alkalineforlife.com, which helps health-conscious people understanding the importance of pH balance and alkalizing your body's chemistry with an alkaline diet. So much valuable information that I hope you all take advantage of. Osteoporosis is not inevitable, and it's never too late to support and rebuild your bones naturally. Now, you can reach Dr. Brown on Instagram at Better Bones, Better Body. She's on TikTok at Dr. Susan Brown, and on Facebook at Better Bones, Better Body. And if you'd like to reach out to her personally, you can reach her and contact her through her website at betterbonesbetterbody.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with others, especially if you know people who are dealing with, bone issues. And if you would like, I would love for you to go over to iTunes and drop me a review and a 5-star review also too. That would help me tremendously in spreading the word and getting more people to find this podcast. If you'd like to reach me, you can reach me at helen@ageisirrelevant.com. And until next time, don't ever forget, age truly is irrelevant. Bye-bye.